bereits eifrigster Champagner sozusagen hier ebenfalls berühmten Trophies und die Kapten natürlich auch bereits bestens vorbereitet für die Podiumsfotos.
Welcome everybody to the Red Bull Ring and the third event of the season for the 2020 Euroformula Open and this 4.3 kilometre circuit for the third event of the year is one that always produces some great racing. The first race of the weekend, round number 5 of the championship, is only a few minutes away. The cars are just making their way out onto the circuit now. Very warm circuit as well. The air temperature creeping up now into the mid-20s and not a cloud in the sky. It's a picture-perfect day here in Austria. And after a very eventful qualifying session earlier on this morning, the stage has been set for a pretty interesting pair of races this weekend. I think it is the championship leader, Yifei, who had the pole position, and that really was never in doubt. It's what was going on behind him that was so very interesting, because basically the rest of the field were covered by the smallest of margins. Initially, it was the Van Amersfoort racing car of Andreas Essner that was due to line up alongside Yifei, but the Japanese driver will now have for company on the front row Manuel Maldonado, because Maldonado had some lap times disallowed in the number 33 Team Motor Park car that have now been reinstated, and the same is true of Sebastian Hester as well, who initially qualified down in 9th, but he's had a lap time reinstated that puts him 3rd, so it is a very different look to the grid that we had immediately after qualifying. On board here with Ido Cohen in the car as he leaves the pit lane. There is the number 4 car of Niklas Crewton, who lines up now a couple of places further back than he was initially going to be. He's down on the 3rd row of the grid now, the second highest placed rookie on the grid. The rookie championship being led jointly by Zane Maloney and Niklas Crewton, so it's going to be quite interesting actually to see how their little battle plays out, because they're together on the grid. They share the 3rd row, Crewton and Maloney. In the overall championship, Yifei, unsurprisingly, is leading the championship. I say unsurprisingly because he has been on the top in almost every session of the year. We've had 5 qualifying sessions and he's qualified on pole 4 times. We've had 4 races and he's won 3 of them. The worst finish that he's had so far was a 2nd place at Paul Ricard last time out. Every other qualifying or race session, he has been at the front, and that has continued here at the Red Bull Ring with that qualifying effort that put him on the pole position, but by a reasonably decent margin. But as I said, not a massive one after the reinstation of the Manuel Maldonado time. So just under 0.3 of a second between Yifei and Manuel Maldonado. Yifei, of course, drives for the Crypto Tower racing team, and Crypto Tower are leading the way in the Teams Championship as well by 19 points over Van Amersfoort in 2nd, and Carl in 3rd, Team Motor Park 4th, whilst Double R and DriveX are still looking for their first points of the year. So Ido Cohen then makes his way onto the grid, the last car to do so, and we can start the start procedure, but the teams are all there just having their final check of the car, final chat with the drivers as the tension really starts to mount. Well, the grid is a pretty interesting one. The championship itself is going to be a pretty interesting one this season. I think it's quite a long championship actually, considering that it didn't start until obviously quite a bit later in the year than it was intended to. And after this round, we go to Monza and Mugello in Italy, Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium, then a double Spanish finale at Barcelona and Jarama, where it may well be that this man is crowned the champion, but there are others out there who would like to change that. There is Manuel Maldonado, second on the grid in the number 33 car, the Venezuelan driver for Team Motorpark, and Manuel has yet to have a podium this year, so he could be on for his first podium finish of 2020 if he stays roughly where he's starting. And then third on the grid, Sebastian Hester, who also had that lap time reinstated. He'll be very glad of that because track position is so important in this championship, and he would much rather start third than ninth, which is where he originally was due to take the start. Alongside him on row 2 is his brother, Andreas Essner, in the number 16 car. Andreas is second in the championship, but yet to win a race. He's had 3 podiums though, and needs to start beating Yifei if he's going to have a chance of the title. Nicholas Crewton is next. As I said, he's the joint rookie championship leader with 1 class victory so far this year, and a best overall finish for Nicholas Crewton of 5th last time at Paul Ricard. He's got Zane Maloney, the driver from Barbados, who has a huge following over in Barbados, who I'm sure are watching and cheering him on from home, and we hope that your driver is able to put in a performance this afternoon. Ido Cohen is next, the Israeli driver, on 6. Ido Cohen 5th in the championship with a whole brace of top 5 finishes. And then the number 26 is Ayrton Simmons, who returned to the British Formula 3 Championship a couple of weeks ago at Brands Hatch and won on his return, so a very rapid driver. It's Ayrton Simmons. I think we can, the next row of the grid then is Alexandra Bardinon. In the number 25 Van Amersfoort car. The French driver down in 13th in the championship after a slightly troubled season so far. He's qualified just ahead of Glenn Van Berlo, who's actually ahead of him in the championship by a point or 2. Those two are pretty evenly matched as well. Glenn Van Berlo was only 65 thousandths of a second slower than Bardinon in qualifying. Then it's the number 34 next, that's Shihab Al-Habsi. We're down on the back row of the grid, and Shihab will have only 1 more car behind him, which is Rui Andrade. Well, let's take a look back at the highlights from Paul Ricard last time out, where we saw a few more twists and turns in the championship. Ido Cohen there had a good qualifying session. There was drama though just in front of Shihab Al-Habsi as one car bounced its way up and over the curbs. Nicholas Crewton was in a good battle, but at the front of the field it was the 69 car, that a familiar sight at the front of the field last time at Paul Ricard, that took the race victory. Lucas Donaire was very happy with that. He started second on the grid for the second race at Paul Ricard, whilst one car stalled from the midfield. And again, there was the usual wheel-to-wheel action. Sometimes, though, it got a little too close for comfort. Glenn Van Berlo tagged into a spin midway through the race, and Glenn then did his best to start fighting back, and eventually Glenn Van Berlo would recover to a top 10 finish. That second race, though, at Paul Ricard was won by Yifei, and Yifei was back to winning ways, and he'll be hoping to continue that again in this afternoon's first race of the weekend, which is over 20 laps the distance, or 35 minutes, whichever comes first, but as long as we don't get any So, getting ready for the race then to get underway, the first race of the weekend for the Euroformula Open. Here is the grid. Yifei for Crypto Tower Racing Team on pole position with Manuel Maldonado alongside him. Then it's Sebastian Hester and Andreas Hester, the 2 Hester brothers, sharing row number 2. Nicholas Crewton is next, ahead of Zane Maloney. The 2 drivers tied for the rookie championship lead, ahead of Ido Cohen and Ayrton Simmons, the young British driver, on row 4. 5th row is where we find Alexandra Bardinon and Glenn Van Berlo, who had that spin last time at Paul Ricard. Shihab Al-Habsi and Rui Andrade make up the back row of the grid, and it is a very competitive grid as well. This should be an intriguing race with Yifei on the front row of that grid, looking to try and make it 4 race victories, from 5 races. So 20 laps around the Red Bull Ring circuit is a pretty long race, actually, for single-seaters, and we've made the point a few times this weekend that it's quite an abrasive circuit, and with the high temperatures as well today, tyre wear is definitely going to be a factor, so watch out for that as the race goes on. Those that maybe have a really strong start to the race might potentially come under a little bit of threat later on in the 20-lap encounter. There's Ido Cohen, who's qualified 7th, not quite as strong a qualifying as his third place last time at Paul Ricard. Green flag lap then gets underway for the Euroformula Open formation lap, and at the front of the field it is the Crypto Tower racing car that has the prime starting position. Maldonado alongside him. There is a teams championship, like I said, that is being dominated by Crypto Tower Racing, and a lot of that is because of Yiffy Ye, but of course Rui Andrade is also racing for Crypto Tower Racing, and he starts right at the back of the grid. So Crypto Tower, whilst things are going well for them, they would most definitely like to have scored a few more points this weekend. Weaving side to side, then trying to get the tyres into the primary operating window. Despite the fact it's so warm out there, you still have to work hard to get those tyres where you need them. Overtaking, of course, is always a bit of a challenge in a category like this, but around this circuit, particularly in the early stages, I think the slipstream is going to play a big factor. There is a slight headwind between turns 3 and 4, slight tailwind down the pit straight, so that will come into play, no doubt. And we'll wait and see if those that have qualified a bit further down the order are going to be able to make up for lost ground. As far as the championship's concerned, it's Andreas Essner who starts 4th, who really needs to do some overtaking here, because he is slipping ever further back now from Yiffy Ye, nearly over 30 points behind now as we come into this 5th round of the championship. I'll be joined by Elliot Wood once again in the commentary box ahead of this one, and cars lining up on the grid now. Yiffy Ye on pole position. The big story though, Manuel Maldonado and Sebastian Hester both getting their lap times back, so that has led to quite a change of the grid order at the front.
Yeah, it's we had a lot of track limit issues this weekend, and literally an hour before this race started, that's come through, and I've been chasing up a lot of this these updates in the paddock, as you can probably tell.
I'll let you get your breath back for a second then, because the race is about to start. It is rather warm here, so if poor Elliot's had to run back over from the paddock in a hurry, I can imagine he's a little bit worn out after that, but the race is about to start with Yiffy Ye and Manuel Maldonado on the front row of the grid together. There is Rui Andrade at the back of the grid pulling into line. So we are ready to go racing for 20 laps of the Red Bull Ring. Round number 5 of the Euroformula Open is go. Yiffy Ye makes a good start from pole position. A terrible start though from the second row of the grid. Was that Andreas Essner going nowhere? I think it might have been. Into turn number 1 they go though, side by side for the lead, but there's no way through for Manuel Maldonado, right out over the curve for both of the top 2 cars. Ido Cohen is wide again there in the Carlin car further back, and now they took into that slipstream, trying to chase after the race leader. It is Sebastian Hester into second, ahead of Maldonado then. So Manuel Maldonado down to third, Andreas Essner is fourth, Zane Maloney up into 5th place as they all get bunched together into the braking zone, and one car way wide, one of the Carlin machines that was, bouncing its way back across the runoff area. It was Nicholas Crewton who stalled on the grid, but he has now got going, albeit down in 12th and last position. Damage, I think, to the Zane Maloney car that will be, that ran wide up at turn number 3 as Ido Cohen goes wheel to wheel there with Alexandra Bardinon going through turn 4 and makes the place stick. So I thought the opening exchanges could be pretty lively. You've got to make progress when you can in this category. Yiffy Ye is already getting away though from Sebastian Hester second. Manuel Maldonado is showing back in second place again now, ahead of Sebastian Hester in third. So he must have gone through into turn 3 on the opening lap. Andreas Essner then in 4th, Ido Cohen we were on board with briefly in 5th, from Bardinon 6th, Ed Simmons 7th, Van Berlo 8th, Al-Habsi 9th, and one car having a big problem actually heading for the pit lane, and that is, I want to say, Ed Simmons possibly. Let's see who doesn't come through. No, it's Bardinon. Bardinon's into the pit lane, and Maloney was the Carlin driver that was slow with some damage on the opening lap. So 2 drivers unfortunately slipping out of contention already, and Yifier starting to make good his escape if he can. Well, you've got to try and make progress, Elliot, in the early stages if you can, but of course it's so easy to trip over another car and then your race is over.
Absolutely is, and as we saw last time out at Paul Ricard, these tyres can actually last the whole race, and with very limited differences in grain between different drivers and different teams. So don't get your overtake done now, and that is a puncture. Those tyres haven't lasted at all. I take that back. Zane Maloney is in the pits, so Bardion and Zane Maloney are out of contention already. We're seeing Rui Andrade alongside Shahab Al-Habsi. Very brave move if he tries this around the outside.
Yeah, this is for 8th place. He can't go around the outside, but he forces Rui to defend on the way in, runs wide on the exit, and so Andrade is back up the inside, but then frustratingly the next corner is a left-hander, and that plays back into the hands of the number 34 car, which sails back through again. 8th, 9th and 10th places together, because that is the recovering Nicholas Crewton, who had an awful start from the 3rd row of the grid, and Nicholas Crewton will be happy in a way that Zane Maloney's in trouble as well, because those two, as I said, were tied for the rookie class championship lead, and they're both having a bit of a nightmare now. Maloney back out of the pit lane after that puncture, and Nicholas Crewton all the way down in 10th after stalling on the line. Bardonen has also got going again, so I'm not quite sure. Maybe those two came together and maybe Bardonen needed a new front wing or something. But either way, none of this really concerns the race leader. He is checking out with the fastest lap of the race on lap 2, 1:24.663. Yifier already 1.3 seconds clear.
Yep, he's probably going to have an easy race from here, as Manuel Maldonado's already focusing on the cars behind rather than chasing down Yifier for the lead. Both Van Amersfoort drivers, the two Esner brothers behind him. Now, if I'm Van Amersfoort, I'd want to get some big points here, so I wouldn't spend too much time letting Sebastian attack Maldonado. I think I'd back off and then let Andreas have a go as well, because we do know these tyres are going to last a distance. Yes, and Andreas is the higher placed of the Esner brothers in the championship, because Sebastian had a bit of a bad round at Paul Ricard last time out, but in fairness, at the Hungaroring, Sebastian and Andreas were pretty evenly matched, and it looks as though Sebastian is back to his best again this weekend, so he will probably feel up to the challenge. Here's a replay of the start. Oh, yeah, so he initially got going and then it bogged down and stalled. So that's, you can see the 3rd car on the left, it goes and then it stops. And, Zane Maloney that was, wasn't it? Did a good job of avoiding running into the back of his fellow rookie competitor. No, it was Cohen, excuse me. Yeah, so Ido Cohen then just avoids him. That's Zane Maloney to the right. Now, somewhere in all of this, Zane Maloney is going to end up with a left rear puncture. I'm not entirely sure where. I have to just hope it wasn't contact with his teammate that did it. The 4 black and red cars at the front of the field all getting together. A good start made by Sebastian Hester to get into 2nd, but Maldonado was eventually able to get back through. And another view there of the stall for Crewton. Oh, and 1 or 2 others got very close to him as well. Then he got it fired back up again. I can tell you he's got past Rui Andrade, by the way, now. So Crewton is into 9th place. This is how Andrade tried to get ahead of Shihab Al-Habsi a lap or so earlier by taking the wide line into turn number 4, tight line out, but this didn't work, and at some point later on then, Nicholas Crewton has been able to find a way through. That is Zane Maloney then, the number 31 car. Zane Maloney was... he's in the gravel there as he goes through turns 7 and 8. He's probably quite frustrated with the way that this race has panned out, having qualified reasonably well up in 6th on the grid. Zane Maloney has 2 podiums, but of course he's really ruining that race that he didn't start at Paul Ricard, the first race last time out, and as you can see there, he's almost in danger of going a lap down to the race leaders then, who are making their way down through turns 9 and 10 for the 4th time. Things just settling down a bit more now. Replay of that moment, just got wide there through 7. Over those curbs, sends gravel flying into the air all over the track, and it's got to be frustrating, hasn't it? He had high hopes this weekend, and Zane Maloney already way out of contention and pushing a bit too hard, I think, to try and recover. Yep, Yifier's title rivals haven't had an easy weekend so far. Andreas Esner down in 4th, Maloney's in last place, and Lucas Dunner's not even here. So it's pretty easy, even if Yifier doesn't win this race, to extend his championship lead. Yeah, but I don't think he thinks like that, does he? I think he wants to add the winners' trophies to his collection if he can. And he's going the right way about it. The real battle is for 2nd place. Manuel Maldonado and Sebastian Hester, and Andreas Esner not able to live with their pace at the moment. And Andreas is the man that's 2nd in the championship, so you'd have expected him to be right on the case of those in front. On board with Andrade here as Nicholas Crewton and Shahab Al-Habsi do battle. Now, Crewton is trying to do to Al-Habsi what Andrade tried to do to him a couple of laps ago.
and it's not going to work still, because although Crewton gets up the inside line of his fellow rookie driver here, he's on the wrong side of the road then into turn number 6. Can he go right round the outside? Even then, the next corner is another left-hander, but he's got his nose in front, and Nicholas Crewton, surely he's not going to pull that off. He has. That was a spectacular move there for Crewton, and it's held up Al-Habsi now, and so Rui Andrade sees an opportunity to get the slipstream over the hill, down towards turn number 9, has a look to the inside line. Oh, has he made that stick? We'll never know. The signal breaking out as he went into the...
Al-Habsi's behind.
Oh, nice. Out of the window. I forget we've got windows sometimes in the commentary box. Yes, so through he's gone. That was a heck of a move from Nicholas Crewton.
Yeah, a stunning move, especially as the track is off camber all the way through those 2 corners there. So, you're more likely to end up in the gravel than get that kind of move done. Zane Maloney is back in the pits. The team are working on the car. I don't think they plugged the laptop in, so it's most likely to be mechanical damage rather than anything structural or electrical. But that is his race pretty much over. He's going to be 2 laps down now at this point.
Yeah, so no points then for Zane Maloney in either the overall championship or the rookie championship, and he was hoping to compete for both of those this year. 3rd in the outright points coming into this race. So we focus back on this fight for 2nd place. So Sebastian Hester, he's running around about 4 tenths behind Manuel Maldonado, and that is... he's stuck now, isn't it? Even if he is quicker than Maldonado, he's in that dirty air and he just can't get any closer. Sometimes it's best in this situation to drop back a bit and then try and arrive with a bit of momentum again, but Esner, he can stay with Maldonado, but doesn't really look likely to pass at the moment.
Yeah, and the Red Bull Ring, despite having very long straights, we do have these tailwinds and these headwinds, and depending which direction that wind is going is going to make the job a lot harder to overtake or a lot easier, because obviously you can be very quick behind the car, but as soon as you pull out alongside him, you're going to have all this air coming at you, this dirty air, and it'll just slow you down. Yeah,
exactly. So overtaking is not always easy, which is why they all went a bit crazy, I think, on the opening lap to try and make up some ground. So Zane Maloney, as you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, is still in the pit lane, but the other 11 cars are all still running. The closest of the battles, though, is this one that we're showing you for 2nd place. Everybody else pretty well spaced out, and as we saw in qualifying, lap times almost identical amongst the midfield runners. Replay here of Maldonado getting very out of shape through turn 1. It's a very inviting corner, turn 1, because it's uphill in the braking zone, it's uphill at the apex, so you want to carry the speed in there, but then eventually it levels off again, and just as you go over that crest, it's very easy to lose the rear.
Yeah, and it's pretty much because your front wheels are on a completely different piece of road to your rear wheels, and sometimes they're not even on the ground for a few seconds. But I think with the Motorpark car as well that Maldonado's driving, we did see how tail happy it was, and that is a setup characteristic of that team. Whereas Van Amersfoort Racing, very smooth, and you can see how Esner just got through that corner, probably at the same speed, but in a very different style.
Warning flag for car 6, by the way, Ido Cohen, for, you guessed it, track limits at turn 10, which is this corner here, the final turn. But running a bit too wide over those curbs, those two should just about get away with it. As long as you've got one wheel on the either the tarmac or the curb, you should get away with track limits, but that's been the big talking point this weekend, track limits and curbs as well, because they put these curbs in to try and stop the drivers exceeding track limits, and then the drivers continue to exceed track limits, and then they complain that they're damaging their car on the curbs. So you can't win really sometimes if you're trying to manage track limits penalties. But Yifie, who himself has received a few track limits penalties this weekend, although thankfully in practice rather than in the race thus far, he's continuing to check out. 3.4 seconds nearly now, clear of this scrap for 2nd place. Maldonado 2nd, Sebastian and Andreas Esner 3rd and 4th, but they're now 2 seconds apart. Are you surprised here that Sebastian is quite considerably quicker than Andreas at the moment in this one?
Quite possibly. I think the start has been Van Amersfoort Racing's kind of failing in most races this season. And it's the same as we saw at Paul Ricard, the gaps didn't really open up or close beyond 1 or 2 particularly quick drivers. They kind of stay the same. So Esner lost those 2 seconds pretty much in the first 2 or 3 laps, and then it's kind of stayed the same since then. I think Sebastian was a 10th quick on that last time round, but obviously a 2-second gap isn't built by 1/10 advantages over the first 7 laps, so pretty much equal on pace at the moment. It'll be more interesting to see if he does deliberately go slower now and try and get his tyre in the operating window for longer. But the difference in lap time between operating window and not operating window is only really half a second across the grid. Obviously across the race it will be slower, but like the disparity between drivers won't be as much as you see in other series.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the lap times drop off actually as the race goes on. At the moment there's no drop off at all. As you said, they're a durable tyre, and that is allowing the drivers to keep pushing on through the race. He said that the gaps that might change might be gaps involving particularly quick drivers. So Nicholas Crewton is the man that I'm watching. He's 3 seconds now behind Glenn van Berlo, but about half a second quicker. So that, to your point, you know, he is quite a bit quicker than the cars immediately in front of him, and we'll be trying to chase them down. Cohen and Ed Simmons here then together as they head up the hill. The Carlin driver ahead of Ed Simmons, the double R racer, as Trevor Carlin watches on from down in the pit lane. They may have lost Zay Maloney from the fight, but Ido Cohen is still having a good race actually. Ido qualified 7th and he gained 2 spots up to 5th.
Yeah, and Zay Maloney, I do believe, has actually come back out the pits, so he can score a point in this race with fastest lap. Currently in 12th, he'd need to score a point, usual method, by finishing 10th, but we're seeing him set personal bests in the sectors already, so if he does get a fastest lap this race, then that limits some of the damage that his race has already undergone. Yeah,
that's a good point actually. The fastest lap, at the moment, again unsurprisingly, set by the race leader of Yiffier with a 1:23.939, which is about a second and a half off qualifying pace, as you'd expect, because this is a race. They're having to manage their tyres, they might have a bit more fuel on board, but Yiffier, there he is, heads into turn number 3, the Japanese driver, who is odds-on favourite, you'd have to say, even at this relatively early stage of the season, to claim the championship in 2020. Second place scraps still on, 4 tenths between them, and Essner now pushing a bit harder, faster than anybody else in Sector 1. The slipstream definitely helping in there, particularly between turns 1 and 3 up the hill, but can he get close enough? You've got to be right underneath the rear wing, really, of the car in front to be able to pull out and try an out-braking manoeuvre, and he's just not quite able to get there at the moment. So down through the middle sector, through turns 7 and 8, where Zay Maloney had his latest off-track excursion, which brought him back into the pit lane. Yiffier almost responding there to Essner's fast first sector, sets the fastest middle sector of anybody else, so almost guaranteed to see that fastest lap change again this time around. It might still be Yiffier that sets it, and it is at 1:23.544. Can Essner match that? No, a 24.2. So Essner was quicker than Yiffier in the first sector by a tenth, but he was half a second slower than the race leader in the middle sector alone. So Yiffier is driving like a man possessed out there at the moment, particularly in that middle sector.
Yeah, and we've got the wind actually travelling down the hill, so that would have given an advantage of the slipstream for Essner going up. But as soon as they go into the slightly twistier bits of this circuit, yeah, his own pace advantage was pretty evident from that point on. And obviously, he has no benefit of the slipstream, and that's a replay of one of the DriveX cars spinning at the final corner. I think that may be Shahab El-Habsi, number 34, and he has made it back on track since that excursion.
Yes, in 10th place, so I think he lost 1 spot, didn't he? I think he was ahead of Rui Andrade before that, so that's down at turn 10. Again, a very easy corner to get wrong. It's a steep downhill entry into that quick right-hander. Nicholas Crewton continuing to close in on Glenn van Berlo as we get a general warning now saying that drivers must respect track limits. Well, yes, but I think they've been told that already this weekend, and they've not really taken much heed. They are still pushing the limits. Car 15 as well being warned more specifically, which is Sebastian Hester in 3rd place.
And we just saw him do it again at turn 9, which is the corner he's being warned for. He goes straight over the red and white curbs, then over the green ones as well, which aren't as evident as curbs because they're painted to camouflage with grass, but they are almost as bumpy as the first layer of them. And we do have the massive yellow sausage curbs, as they're called, but quite a lot of them being removed after, as you said, the teams and the drivers complained about how structurally rigid they are versus the car.
Yes, but then they're there to serve a purpose, I suppose, and you can see at the tighter corners they've kept them there, but it's that final couple of corners at turn 9 and 10 where they've got rid of them, and that, you won't be surprised to hear, is where we're seeing most of the track limits problems so far this weekend. So Sebastian Hester dropping back a little bit. This battle's still going on though, as Ed Simmons tries to take 5th place away from Ido Cohen. Ido Cohen, who's had some top 5s already this year, but Ayrton Simmons has yet to finish inside the top 5. Ayrton's best finish for Double R this year was 6th place in race 1 at Paul Ricard. He's within touching distance now of his first top 5 in the championship, but again, he's facing a similar problem now to that of Sebastian Hester towards the front of the field. He can get within half a second or so of the car in front, but then through that middle sector especially, he's just struggling to stay with him. Simmons, an exciting driver to watch. He always attacks hard and he won't give up here until the end, that's for sure. More warning flags now, car 6 and 99. Car 6 is Ido Cohen, 99 is Rui Andrade, who's being warned for track limits not just at turn 1, not just at turn 9, but also at turn 10. So 3 of the 10 corners on the track. Rui Andrade has been running a bit too wide. And you have to suspect the rate at which they're racking up the warnings, I wouldn't be surprised to see some penalties before the end of the race, because we are still only just past halfway.
Yeah, and the amount of time gained by cutting these corners is probably in the tenths of a second, but a penalty will be minimum 5 seconds. So adding it all up, it's as soon as the first penalty is applied, it will probably be our first change in position in quite a while. As Zane Maloney returns to the pits again, I think he was not trying to go for fastest lap because he was lapping in the 1:25s and everyone else was in the 1:24s while he was on track. Doesn't look like anyone's out with tyres in the Carlin pit stall, so I think that may be Maloney's race over. They're going to lift the rear with Jack. We can't quite see from it. Oh, we've got a camera now. This is a great help. Yeah, Maloney doesn't look like he's in a rush to go anywhere.
No, this is kind of a test session now, isn't it, to try and make sure they've got to the bottom of whatever the issue is. The good news with Euroformula Open, and it's something I've always liked about this championship, is that after Saturday you can hit the reset button. It's a completely new day on Sunday. The result of this race doesn't mean anything for the grid tomorrow. There's a new qualifying session. So if it all goes completely wrong on the Saturday, you've still got a chance to bounce back on day 2, which drivers like Zane Maloney, for example, are going to be really grateful of now.
Yeah, and we potentially have rain on the radar tomorrow afternoon for race 2. We haven't seen any rain in the last few days at the Red Bull Ring, so wouldn't be too cautious on that. Another warning flag for track limits. Car 4 this time, Nicholas Crewton again. Is there any drivers who haven't picked up one so far? I think Bardignon hasn't had one, and nor has Ye. I think they're the only 2 at the moment.
I think you're right, yes, and Ye is at the front of the field and Alexandre Bardignon at the back. I mean, Bardignon did exceed track limits in a way when he spun at turn 10, but not in a way that's going to get him a penalty because he was going backwards at the time. And Simmons here looks a bit closer to Ido Cohen than he's been for the last few laps. The gap only 0.4 of a second or so as they went out of turn 3 and down the hill into turn number 4. Then they hit this section of the circuit where it is a little bit harder to follow another car closely through turns 6 and 7. Turn 6, such a tricky corner. You can't really see the apex until way after the point at which you have to commit to it. And then the dip at turn 7, careful not to run too wide over that curve as Zane Maloney did. These 2 drivers both managing it well. And then this is the track limits hotspot through turn 9 and turn 10. So let's see how these 2 behave. Now that's acceptable, that's okay. You can have 1 or 2 wheels out over onto the green stuff. So they're learning, they're getting there, but Ayrton Simmons, try as he might, still can't get within striking range here.
Yeah, and racing cars are driven mostly through feel rather than sight, and these curbs are designed to, you know, you can really feel it through your rear end. And yeah, he's gone a little too far over. That's Bardignon now, so we've ticked him off the list. Only Ifie left. So normally if you'd feel those curbs, you should know if your left wheel's all right, I've already gone over them and bring the car back in. But obviously some drivers don't do that, and they just let it go all the way.
It's very easy for us to criticise sat up here in our nice comfortable commentary box, but it all happens so quickly, and like I say, you commit to a lot of these corners and they're completely blind. So if you are a fraction out with your turning point, sometimes it's almost out of your control. You go over the crest, the car understeers wide, and the last thing you want to do then is lift off the throttle, or even worse, touch the brakes, because that then unsettles the car and you can end up spinning. So I do understand why they're doing it, but it's a massively frustrating way to lose a race if you have a time penalty. Having said that, Ifie could afford to have a 5-second penalty now and still win, because he's 6.4 seconds ahead of Manuel Maldonado, who continues to fend off Sebastian Hester in 3rd place, Andreas Hester 4th, and then this the battle for 5th place. Ido Cohen and Ayrton Simmons as close as they have been really for most of the race. Glenn Van Berlo is 7th and Nicholas Crewton 8th. Now that's the position that is more likely to change, isn't it? Because Crewton is quicker than Glenn Van Berlo. On this lap alone, he was about 2.5 tenths quicker in Sector 1. Loses it a bit in Sector 2 though, so actually the gap is stable between those 2 at 7 tenths. 7 tenths seems to be as close as you can get without then running into turbulent air and losing downforce through the corners. So that's why I think we're seeing a lot of the gaps throughout the field hovering around the 3/4 of a second mark.
Yeah, and wind direction is still heading downhill, so on the run to turn 3 where you'd ideally want to be making a move, if you dive out that slipstream, you're suddenly hit by a gust of wind, which is going to slow you down. So that's kind of ruined the major overtaking spot on this track. And also the fact that it's one of only really 3 braking zones. As soon as you get to turn 4 onwards, that's pretty much flat out if you're brave enough until turn 9.
Yeah, certainly not enough of a braking zone anywhere there to outbrake someone. The longer the braking zone is, the more scope there is for someone to outbrake the car in front of them. But these cars, of course, they're generating so much downforce that you can brake extremely late, even into some of the really tight stuff. And that is why it's a challenge to find a way through sometimes. Leader across the start-finish line, though, and Yifei is now onto his 17th lap out of 20. 4 laps remaining then here at the Red Bull Ring, the 5th round of the Euroformula Open Championship, and Yifei in the Crypto Tower Racing team looks as though he's going to notch up another victory. Some feel-good stories behind it though. Manuel Maldonado in second place, on for his first podium finish of the year here, if he can hang on, and that's kind of been a long time coming. Maldonado is a steady pair of hands. He's had a couple of years over in British Formula 3. Ooh, speaking of steady hands, that required some steady hands to control the slide out of turn number 1 there for Yifei, the race leader. But yeah, Maldonado, if he can hang on to this second place, it would be really nice to see him on the podium, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and especially after his qualifying where he had his best laps deleted, and then about an hour before this race they were reinstated, as with Sebastian Hester, as Yifei actually lapped Bardignon there. Could have gone badly wrong, but it hasn't, and he's still got 6.9 second lead. Maldonado's actually just set his personal best in the first sector as well. Not that it's going to make a difference at this point in the race. And going on about that 7 tenths gap, we've now got 3 tenths between Crewton and Van Berlo. Camera's still following our leader, Yifei, but I think I did see them go past the commentary box at the top of the circuit. They're relatively close, so we could have our first overtake in possibly, 12 laps coming in on this next one?
Yes, and no great surprise, it might come from Crewton, who has been overtaking a few drivers after that bad start that he had. The leading group, though, come across the start-finish line. 7 seconds now the margin between Yifei and Manuel Maldonado. Crewton, I think, is close to Van Berlo, but maybe not quite close enough to attack for the time being. As Sebastian Hester heads out of turn number 1, the Van Amersfoort racing car on course here for a really much needed 3rd place. He's going to spend the rest of the season, I think, trying to make up for that slightly lacklustre weekend a couple of weeks ago at Paul Ricard. And 3rd place is a decent way to go about starting that comeback.
Yeah, I think everyone's got something to fight for here, even if they're not fighting for position. Maldonado be his first podium. Esner definitely get the season back on track, and Yifei is obviously chasing records. I think we kind of see it every season now in Euroformula. We have one driver who kind of raises their game to an entirely new level for the championship. So he'll be hoping to get, this will be his 4th win in 5. He'll be wanting, I think, 14 to match the record set by Felipe Drugovich, and then 15 if he wants to be the overall best season winner in Euroformula.
I think it's definitely doable, isn't it? I mean, if it hadn't been for Lucas Donaire turning up and spoiling the show as far as Yifei was concerned at Paul Ricard last time out, we would probably be talking about a 5th race victory today for Yifei of the season. This is the fight that we've been talking about for the last lap or so, though. Nicholas Crewton has caught Glenn Van Berlo now. This is for 7th position and for 2nd place within the rookie class as well. And Van Berlo, who had that spin at Paul Ricard last time out, which definitely knocked him a lot further down the order than he should have been. He'd qualified well for that race and ended up finishing down in 10th position. And Glenn Van Berlo, can he fend off Nicholas Crewton for another 2 laps, because we are on to now the 19th lap of 20. If Crewton's going to do it, it's going to have to be probably up into this next braking zone, isn't it? Into turn number 3. He's in the toe. He's probably not quite close enough, although he has a little peek to the inside, just trying to distract Glenn Van Berlo, I think, more than anything else. But Crewton might just have enough of a speed advantage here to have a good go at this over the last lap and a half.
He potentially could, but unfortunately the wind has now actually changed direction, so it's going to be down this straight where he's going to be at a disadvantage if he pulls out the slipstream. But going up on the run to turn 3 will be the better place to overtake now. But obviously with only 1 lap to go, and with, I guess he's only got 4 points on the board at the moment. He finishes 8th, but you know, he could throw away a top 8 result if he does get this wrong, as we've seen in other races this weekend.
Yeah, points are critical, and although no doubt he's someone targeting outright success in the championship, he will have one eye on that rookie championship, and he'll know that Maloney's not going to score anything today. So a third place in class would be better than a non-finish, but of course he will also be aware that Glenn Van Berlo in front of him is running second of the rookies at the moment. Yifei doesn't often run second in anything, does he? He's been dominating this race, and he turns his way into turn number 3 for the final time now. The Crypto Tower Racing team are, I think, on the cusp of their 5th victory of the season, and the Japanese driver's 5th driver as well, and Chinese driver, excuse me, and a Japanese team, Chinese driver, and Yifei in absolutely superb form again here at the Red Bull Ring, and an imperious drive this. 8.5 seconds he is up the road from Manuel Maldonado, who himself has been able to shake off the attention of Sebastian Hester in third now. Hester 2.5 seconds back. Andreas Hester actually catching him in the closing stages. And that fight for 7th, Nicholas Crewton is still stuck behind Glenn Van Berlo. It all, though, is about Yifei at the front of the field. He turns down into the final couple of corners for the final time, and it is win number 4 of the season from 5 races for Yifei. The championship leader wins again in the Euroformula Open Championship. 2nd place for Manuel Maldonado, and his first podium in the category, with Sebastian Hester coming home in 3rd position. Andreas Hester should be 4th, yes he is, with Ido Cohen in 5th position, Ayrton Simmons 6th, Glenn Van Berlo 7th, I think. Yep, the white and red car's coming through ahead of Nicholas Crewton's black and red number 4 car. Rui Andrade will be in 9th position eventually, and Shahab Al-Habsi will come home in 10th, whilst Alexandra Bardanen was a lap down in the end after the spin that he had down at turn number 10 with Zane Maloney not getting to the flag. So an entertaining race then, certainly lots of close racing throughout the midfield, but at the front there was only ever one man likely to win this race, and it is Yifei. The start, he got a decent start, but he was under some pressure for the first corner or 2, but then really by the time they got into the middle sector on lap 1, there was no way that he was going to be caught. Broke away from the rest, broke the slipstream, and managed to win by 8.8 seconds, as you can see there. Yifei with the win then, Manuel Maldonado in 2nd, and Sebastian Hester 3rd. 3 different nationalities on the podium. Sebastian's brother, Andreas, is 4th, but he loses a few points there in the championship race. Ido Cohen 5th, Ayrton Simmons 6th, Glenn Van Berlo 7th, 8th for Nicholas Crewton after the stall at the start, 9th Rui Andrade, and 10th for Shihab Al-Habsi in the DriveX car. Alexandra Bardanen 1 lap down, and Zane Maloney, I think, might have got back out on track at the end. Yes, he did, so he's classified as a finisher, albeit 12th place. This is what it means for the championship points then now. Yifei with a 51-point cushion. It's really becoming about the fight for 2nd. Andreas Hester and Ido Cohen getting themselves closer together. Zane Maloney, of course, losing ground in that one, and Manuel Maldonado gaining some ground to move into 5th place in the championship. So, yeah, I think, although we can't give this to Yifei just yet, it's certainly going to be hard to see anybody beating him for the title this year. There's the winning moment for Yifei then as he comes out of the final corner, sees the checkered flag, and the Crypto Tower Racing team are very, very pleased with that. And so they should be, really. Manuel Maldonado and Sebastian Hester 2nd and 3rd, and set Team Motor Park ahead of Van Amersfoort. Yifei takes the time to put the steering wheel back in. This is a very calm Yifei. Getting a bit used to this winning business now, isn't he? He's been doing so much of it this year. He always looks bored and uninterested, doesn't he, really? This is, he's not... But he knows that the win is not just important because it's a race win, but because it is a very nice point haul. There we go, now he celebrates. Couldn't celebrate until he got the wheel attached properly, that's what it was. And now Yifei can climb out and go celebrate with the team after a dominant performance once again in the Euroformula Open Championship here at the Red Bull Ring. Another race tomorrow, of course. And as I was saying in the race, there is a completely separate qualifying session tomorrow morning that will decide the grid for that one. And once the qualifying session is done, those that maybe have had a bad performance in this race, looking at people like Zane Maloney and Nicholas Crewton, for example, they have a chance maybe, if they can qualify well, to get some points back tomorrow. If we will hear from him in a moment or two then.
Yifei winner at Red Bull on Saturday, race 1, under the sun. Everything under control?
Yeah, I would say so, pretty much. The start was not the best we had, but yeah, we managed to hold on for P1 until turn 2 and turn 4, and turn 1 and turn 3. So from that onwards, I was just trying to manage my pace. I was seeing that the guys behind me cannot follow my pace, so I was managing my rhythm throughout the race and managing the tires as well in case there's a safety car. Unfortunately, there wasn't safety car for me, so I could hold the gap until the end of the race and bring back home the victory. So very happy about that.
And it's all good for the championship?
Yeah, absolutely. Another 25 points plus the pole this morning, plus the fastest lap of the race. So very happy about that, and big credit to the team. Hopefully we can do the same again tomorrow.
For the time being, enjoy the podium, enjoy the victory. Well done.
Thank you.
Well, I think if he... Highlights then of the first race of the weekend for the Euroformula Open Championship, and the 5th round of the championship saw Yifei lead from pole position and never really look back, despite saying that it wasn't a brilliant start that he made. Manuel Maldonado and Sebastian Hester were dicing away for second place in the early stages, with Maldonado briefly out ahead of him. Rui Andrade was racing with Shahab Al-Habsi as well in the early part of the race, while Zane Maloney had to pit for an early puncture, and then, as he tried to fight back, ran through the gravel through turns 7 and 8. Nicholas Crewton was making up for a terrible start where he stalled on the line and made this incredible pass round the outside of Shahab Al-Habsi. Rui Andrade would later be able to get past the Omani driver as well, whilst many drivers were falling foul of track limits warnings through the final sector. Alexandra Bardin on there with a run wide as well. There were no such problems though for the number 20 Crypto Tower racing car. Yifei was able to comfortably come home a victor. 8.8 seconds was his winning margin in the end over Manuel Maldonado in second, and Sebastian Hester, who rounded out the podium places. So great victory then for Yifei to extend his points advantage, and he is now looking almost unassailable already at the top of the championship table. But still a long way to go. We're not even halfway through this season yet, and there is another race still to go tomorrow where everything could change. If somebody could beat Yifei to pole position in a race, I think we might be in for a different story, because he's not really had that much experience of racing wheel to wheel with people so far this year. So if ever somebody can get ahead of him on the track, it might well be that we have a slightly different story. Getting ready though to welcome our top 3 drivers onto the Red Bull Ring podium, and Yifei it is who will go onto the top step, but it's Sebastian Hester who finished in 3rd place, who is welcomed out into the Austrian sunshine first. He climbs up onto the 3rd step of the podium. 2nd place goes to Manuel Maldonado, his first podium in the category, and that's a really, really nice story here this afternoon. Great to see Manuel enjoying some success. And the race victory, though, goes to somebody who's had plenty of success already. Yifei, fist pumps all round, is your winner for round number 5 of the Euroformula Open Championship.
China.
Yiffy Ye then wins round number 5 of the Euroformula Open Championship from the Red Bull Ring. His 4th victory from 5 races. Can he do it again tomorrow? That's going to be the big question. I think there's every chance that he might well be able to. And he is going to have a lot of people itching to try and beat him to that top step tomorrow, but it's not going to be easy to do at all. Maybe Manuel Maldonado can go one better. Now he's got that monkey off his back and got his first podium. Perhaps he'll be able to challenge for a victory. For now, though, a chance to cool down in the very warm Austrian sunshine with the champagne shower up on the podium. Well, congratulations to Yiffy Ye and all of our podium drivers. They'll be back out again tomorrow for race number 2 of the weekend. Will Yiffy Ye's winning run continue, or can somebody else find their way to the top step of the podium? Join us tomorrow to find out.